afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are on the planet. I'm Susan McPherson. I am the founder and CEO of McPherson Strategies, and most recently the author of The Lost Art of Connecting. And I couldn't think of a better place to be than here today, because I get to be blessed to be surrounded by three incredibly brilliant and compassionate leaders. And we are going to be talking about the vital, important role that meaningful relationships play in building impact, deepening impact, making impact happen. So, just a quick note to say congratulations to Sloan Davidson and the entire team who has toiled in the trenches to create this incredible summit, as well as the work that they do every single day supporting refugees across the United States. So I'm going to first introduce my panelists to my left, right, bottom, top, however it all works in this Zoom land. But I'll start with to my right, and I'm going to ask each of them to give a little bit more detail about themselves, because I think you are all going to be inspired and enchanted. So to my right, I have Hitha Palepu, Tina Tran, and Sabrina Hersi Issa. So if each of you could give us a little bit of background about yourself and maybe a few lines about how meaningful connections have made magic in your life and led you to a life of impact, quite frankly. So over to you, Hitha.
Thank you so much, Susan. I'm Hitha Palepu. By day, I run an early stage pharmaceutical company called Roshan Pharmaceuticals, and I'm an early investor in women-founded and women-focused startups. Impact through relationships has really defined my career, from building relationships with chance people I meet at a meeting to the way Susan and I met, which was kind of stalking each other at a co-working space for months before we finally got together, and building an incredible friendship and relationship that has brought so much joy to my life. I think everything I look at over the course of my career and life has happened because of deepening and building relationships. So I'm so excited to speak more about this with you all today.
Right. Tina, excuse me.
Yeah, hi, Tina Tran. I came to the US at the age of 4 from Vietnam as a refugee. And one of my first experiences that I can remember in life is being handed over to a pirate at sea, and then living in a refugee camp for a year after that. So that has brought me to Hello Neighbor. I'm a board member of Hello Neighbor now for 2 years. And it is amazing to be able to give back and provide a perspective of what the refugee experience is like to the board at Hello Neighbors. That's something I really cherish. I am by day a business development executive at Microsoft, and my other jobs are investing in seed companies similar to Hitha, and also advisor to startups. And then just something I'm passionate about is finding opportunities to help lift people up. I'm also part of Know Me Network, which fights human trafficking, modern day human trafficking, through empowerment, specifically economic empowerment solutions. So that's something that really drives me. In terms of relationships and where they've led me in my life, all of my most meaningful, sort of most joyful experiences are from the relationships I've been able to build. And it's about the community and the tribe that you build to support each other and help each other in this life. And it's allowed me to have a very incredible career, but in addition to that, just a very joyful life of friendships. And just getting to know these women now, I feel like, we did some pre-work before this. I feel like they're my friends. And we're hoping that, as you build, I found that as I reveal myself more, I used to not talk about being a refugee. It just was like, that was so long ago. But I find that as we reveal ourselves more, that's how we can really build meaningful relationships.
Absolutely. And Sabrina, and I have to just say, as a child growing up with Bewitched being my favorite show, Sabrina was like a hero. So I will forever. And then a side note, one of my best friends is named Adora, and I always think of Endora. So anyhow, sorry. So
I'm so grateful for my name. My name means
beautiful.
three. It's Somali, it's Arabic, and it's in English. I was I was my family's start of the American franchise. So I love that my name is a bridge in that way. So thank you. So hello, everyone. I am Sabrina Hersi Issa. I am the proud daughter of political asylees from Somalia. And I'm a human rights technologist, which is how I've come to describe my work, which applies a justice framework to technology solutions and get my mother to stop asking me about going to law school, which kind of gets into this connection thing. Like, why would she ask that? Because in the United States, there is this like signal about prestige and certain industries that get that and some that don't. And she wants the best for her kids. She wants a great life for us. But I had to figure out a way to use language to create connections for her to understand that there's many possibilities for people to thrive here. And I do my work to make sure that is actually a reality that is actualized by as many people as possible. Like Hitha, like Tina, I'm also an investor. I invest in companies that are focused on fostering well-being, community, and connection. And overall, in practice, my work and my purpose and what I do in relationship to connection is I leverage technology and media to improve human dignity, how human dignity is experienced and access for more people, from healthcare to humanitarian aid.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you all, ladies, for giving a bit of background to your amazing lives, as well as sharing a bit of how connections have played a role. I want to ask you a bit about the role and importance that communications has played in your work, and how, and Sabrina, you touched upon this, but how communications has helped you establish and nourish relationships. And maybe each of you could share a few examples of specific communication strategies you've used both online and in person, because we're in this almost some sense of return to normalcy, but not quite there yet.
Ooh, we're far from there.
Yeah.
I'll go first, especially since my intro teased that for you. One of the things that I have loved about, and I don't know about other folks' lives in the before times, but in before times, I was always gone. I was always on a plane, popping around the world, doing work, visiting clients. And because of that, like jet setting, go lifestyle, I've had to intentionally create practices of care and connection. And because I have people all over the world, and I felt like my community was always everywhere. So when the pandemic set in and we were all, cut off, it was not personally disruptive because I was someone for whom I had to craft intentional practices of connection my entire life. I felt like my community was anywhere, and my people knew that they were my people. So one of the things that I did coming out of the pandemic, I'm someone who I don't really enjoy drinking. I didn't want to sit on Zoom happy hours. It was not my best life. But I really love wellness, and I love seeing my people and making sure they know that I'm like thinking of them. So I started this thing called, instead of social distancing, I called it social solidarity.
I love
and
that.
We had social solidarity wellness sessions where we would get on Zoom and kiki for a little bit. And then I invited a personal trainer to come and like work us out. And then afterwards, someone else, I invited another practitioner who does meditation. And it was just a really great way to intentionally see people in really stressful, chaotic, scary times and say, like, I see you, I care for you, I'm here for you. And let's just make space to be humans together.
Well, and give them a space that's comfortable for them too. And I think of it almost as like you gave everybody a cashmere blanket around each of them. If I was to equate that. Tina.
Yeah, what I find fascinating is asking people about their journey and what their motivations and what led them to kind of do what they're doing today. And I find those stories are just really powerful because people don't often talk about the things that drive them to be where they are. They're talking about kind of what they're doing today, but not why they're doing it. So I always find the why and asking questions a great way to truly connect and understand somebody a little bit more deeply. And I find that people really like talking about why they're here and what has led them to this point. And it's a great way for us to easily get a little bit deeper, learn about people's stories. And then you have something special that probably a lot of other people don't know. All of a sudden you've shared this kind of special thing with one another. It's kind of like your inside, it's not your inside joke, but it's like your inside thing that you know. So I like that, is really understanding what drives people, and like what are their values that make them do what they're doing today. So that's something I like to get deep when, and you don't have to wait till the second or third conversation. It's the first conversation. Why are you doing that? Tell me, what's led you here.
I love that. And I mean, I have to say, leading a life of curiosity is the greatest gift that we can all carry with us, because it's going to ensure that we're always learning, not only about the world around us, but actually about ourselves too.
Mm-hmm.
Over to you,
Thank you. This pandemic did change my life a lot, because I was the person who was bopping around the city for meetings or working out of a co-working space and letting people come meet me. So to go from that to like Zoom took a while. And also I have 2 young sons. So remote schooling and keeping them from killing each other was an additional challenge. So there are some things I'm very grateful for about this pandemic, which is about going deeper and also going a little bit wider with my network and the relationships in my life, because I realized how surface level many of them were in the pre-times. It's like, oh, I got to see this person, I got to see this person. I was focused on the quantity of interactions versus the quality. So on a macro level, I have quite an social media community, especially on Instagram, that has grown through the course of the pandemic. Given my day job in healthcare and life sciences, I've been sort of the explainer of COVID and now of vaccines to people who have legitimate questions. So into putting in that time to create space for people to ask questions openly and honestly in a safe space is something that's a priority to me. But then, for my personal relationships, I started a romance book club with some girlfriends because they all read nonfiction books. And I was like, y'all need to read like the world I want to live in. Like, it's so much fun. And so that's actually going, and then I've been sharing what we've been reading on my newsletter and whatnot, but that's something that's given me a lot of joy, is getting my friends to jump into a genre that I feel like gets very dismissed, when in fact it is the most profitable genre in publishing. And like, I want to live in a world where ambition and pleasure and all of these things are celebrated. And yes, it brings me a lot of joy, and I intend to keep this book club going for a very long time.
Are you suggesting I should have written a romance novel rather than?
That's your next book, Susan.
Or maybe
it's the connection of a different form.
Well, tip to everyone in the audience: if you are not following Hitha on Instagram, you are missing out, obviously, on romance joy, but also like always the explainer. Like, it's like she's a human Google when you need to understand something. So let's, Tina, you already talked a bit about this, of using curiosity as a means to open conversations, but I'd be curious if we can dive a little bit deeper. What are some of the approaches that you have found to be helpful, and during the pandemic, but also pre-pandemic, to actually connect with others? What has been effective? And I realize that's a wide question, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And we can go with
so I can quickly jump in. Something that I do with my team is we have these check-ins every other week, and I ask them, like, what is bringing you joy right now? And then if it's easy, I tell them ahead of time, if you can bring like a picture that you want to share with us, and just send it in the chat. And that way, we're not together, but it's still, we can kind of experience each other's joys. And then I ask them, like, what are your challenges right now? And what can we, like, what is it that our team can help with? So just kind of the basics around, sharing your joys and sharing your suffering. That's kind of what connects us at the human level. And you never know what people are going to say, right? So, and it's also creating joy for others when they get to go through their phone and look for the item that brings them most joy, right? So I think that's a nice way to kind of connect outside of what you're necessarily focused on, and just to check in. Because I think right now people need and feel loved when they're being checked in on, because they're not getting exposure to their people. I got a random check-in note this morning that said nothing other than, I'm checking in on you, and I'm giving you a virtual hug. And it made me feel so loved.
I love that. Sabrina?
Well, I know for me, a lot of the work that I do for Connection is actually about creating safety for that. People, especially in these times, need to feel a sense of emotional safety to be able to connect. So that's kind of like the pre-work to that work. And that comes with understanding where people are at and where they're coming from, and practicing a degree of empathy and compassion and spaciousness to say, like, hey, I see you. I know that, you know, we're in wild times, but like, you matter, and I want to know what's going on with you. I love that across all three of us, we have this common through line of valuing joy. And I think that is such a beautiful, beautiful, radical experience. But in order for everyone to be able to access joy, we need to be able to have environments and communities where people actually feel safe.
Completely agree. And I think, you know, from a business perspective or from an organizational perspective, that space has to be provided and made integral by the powers of the company or the organization. Hitha, do you
Something I've done, yeah. So my company, I run it with my father. So with the exception of me, everyone else on our team is my father's peer. So it's been interesting because I have a lot of hands-on grandparents that work with me in developing this product. So teaching them Zoom has actually been a benefit to them because they said I could help out with Zoom school. Like I could help my grandkids with Zoom school, and they felt so excited about it. Well, one big thing I put in at the beginning of this year is I want everyone to take a week off every single quarter this year. So please let me know what week you're going to be taking off, because we all need to recharge. And as we start getting vaccinated, reconnect with our loved ones on a greater scale. So give it to me and send it to me and let me know when you're going to be taking a pause, because that is very real. But I just want to say I value your contribution, I value you, and I want you to rest and take that time to not think about our IND, FDA, all of that stuff, because it can be all encompassing and a lot all the time.
Sure, sure. Thank you all for sharing that. In my book, one of the key themes that runs through the entire, all the chapters is leading always with how can I help rather than what I can get, which is a little bit, you know, pivoting on what we have traditionally thought about networking and meeting folks. And I'd be curious if each of you could share a time, either professionally or personally, where asking how you could help led to a connection or a deeper relationship that perhaps you hadn't anticipated. Anybody?
I can quickly start. Something that comes to mind was I actually approached Sloan when she started Hello Neighbor, and I said, I love what you're doing. Your mission really speaks to me. Is there anything I can do to help with Hello Neighbor? Do you have a refugee already on your board? If not, would it be interesting for you to have a refugee perspective? What else can I support you with? At the time I was working at Facebook, and we have a really great like nonprofit program to help nonprofits really raise a lot of money, raise awareness. And so that for me was something where I am so much richer now from asking Sloan, how can I help Hello Neighbor and the work that you're doing? Because it helps me feel more complete in terms of being a refugee and being able to have this still be a part of my existence. Because for a long time, I haven't felt like a refugee because, you know, I've assimilated into the US, and you do what you do to have to move on and do well in the country that you're in and to thrive. And so you kind of leave that behind. And to be able to like reconnect with the struggle, to reconnect with how other people are feeling that are new today, that is like a joy that I've gotten back as return.
I love that. I love that. Sabrina or Hitha, Jenny, would you want to add anything?
I have a similar story. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sabrina.
Oh no, go in.
We're such women.
Yeah.
Own it, girls.
I was going to say my story is quite similar to Tina's, where I had reconnected with a friend of mine from university. We used to duke it out in Student Senate quite often over now I laugh about the thing seriously, but we both lived in New York for a while and it was shocking that we hadn't caught up. So I said, let's grab a coffee, let's catch up, whatnot. And I started learning about the organization he was the executive director at, which is a criminal justice youth nonprofit, which is amazing. And the question is how can I help you? Like, let me help you with your Instagram and social, and we need everyone to know about you. And he responded with, well, we want you to join our board. And I was like, oh, I was not expecting that, but absolutely. And, you know, it's been, I think to me, I never thought of board service that early on, I guess, in my career, but it's been an absolute honor to serve on this board and to help drive impact and to help share this really remarkable organization's story, especially in these times when all of us look at the news and we're like, what can we do to actually help? Like, what can I do to help change America for the better? So that's truly a humbling experience for me.
Absolutely.
Hitha, I missed the name of the org that you serve on. That sounds awesome.
It's Youth Represent New York City. So they offer incredible legal services and coaching services and lobbying to change for youth stuck in the criminal justice system and to lobby for better laws and change on a state level.
I would say my experience, it was, you know, I guess asking how I can help was asking for help. I have, and I'm sharing this example because of COVID and pandemic, and we're having to reimagine grief and grieving right now. I had several years ago, I had a family member pass away, and I wanted to set up a giving circle to honor them, especially because so much time had passed and there were so many people who I love in my life who would never know them. And I was like, I want to figure out a way to create connection between my life then and my life now. So I asked 10 friends, I gave them each $100, and I said, you know, just do whatever you want to do with this. My only ask is like, well, we'll have dinner in a couple months, you can tell me where the money went. And one of my friends who I asked for help, I'm remixing your question, Susan. I asked for help. She ended up tremendously helping me because one of the ways she used the money was once she's like, Sabrina, with this donation, you helped me see that I could be a donor. Like I could start something like this for my people, which I thought was beautiful. And one of the orgs that she gave to is this place called Zora's House in Columbus, Ohio. It's the first co-working space for women of color, and it's a nonprofit. And I went to Ohio State, and I haven't been back in a long time. And some time had passed between when this, and I didn't know that this existed. I wish that it had, kind of like Hello Neighbor. When Sloan told me about Hello Neighbor and her idea for it, I was like, oh, I wish my family had something like this when we were first starting in America. We became what Hello Neighbor is to other Somalis as they came, but we didn't have something like that. And when I was in college, I wish I had a safe space to be a woman of color and just be. And LC Johnson created that with Zora's House. And I was back at my alma mater to give a talk, and I had some time to kill before a flight. So I was like, I rolled through and I was like, hey, I'm here, what's up? And it was so great. They had an ambassador at the door. It was this beautiful woman who was holding a baby, who just like handed me a baby, and I love babies. And we sat and we talked for hours. I totally missed my flight. I'm getting alert texts from United being like, we're boarding, we're boarding. Okay, no. And we talked for like hours. And I afterwards I said, like, you know, how can I help? And she asked me to join her board, but I said no, because I cannot, like, I don't have the bandwidth for it. What I did say is, I bet on you, I believe in you, and I want to support you. So let's figure out a way where I can do that will support me and help you. So every quarter we have mentoring sessions where we talk for 90 minutes, and it is like so much work, so much great stuff gets done. And I'm so glad we just had one last week, and they're expanding, and there's so many good things happening. And it all started because I asked for help, and then that help ended up helping me, and then I ended up helping the help. It was a whole thing.
Well, the thing is, you know, when we lead with how can we be helpful to others, when it comes time to ask for help, we are in such a better position, correct? And I fervently believe that it's, you know, you don't have to wait for that big ask to ask for help. and that instead little asks along the way. And I would recommend we always give people multiple choices, meaning, it's a lot easier if you give people options rather than just a yes or no. And I'll share a quick story that actually is very applicable, and you'll see why. And this was when someone reached out to ask help from me. And of course, I'm always, leading with how can I be helpful? So it would be very disingenuous if I stopped and wasn't helpful, right? And it was back in 2016 or 2017. And I get an email in the middle of the afternoon, and it was a really busy day at my company. And the email said, Susan, a friend of mine who's a filmmaker wants to get into a refugee camp tomorrow in Greece. Can you help? Now, so that everybody understands, one of the boards I serve on, which is a proud sponsor of this event, is USA for UNHCR, which is the UN, the US arm of the UN High Commission for Refugees. So I've been doing a lot of refugee advocacy and outreach and philanthropic support over the years. So it wasn't so out in left field. However, first of all I kept thinking, and this is a lesson, was the last thing the world needs is another documentary film about refugees that no one will see. Shame on me for having an assumption. However, I had about 7 minutes before the next meeting, and I said, you know what, I'll see what I can do. I made a few calls, and I was able to get this gentleman, Brant Anderson, into the refugee camp the next day in Lesbos. Well, I learned a week later, he wasn't a documentary filmmaker. He was actually a big budget Hollywood producer who had done a number of Tom Cruise films. He, through that experience, became extraordinarily passionate about refugee issues and supporting refugee issues. And then a month later, I get an email out of nowhere from a friend who's an advisor to the organization CARE. And she said, Susan, do you happen to know a filmmaker who can go spend a couple of weeks on the Syrian border at the Azraq refugee camp in Jordan? Guess what? I had the connection. So I reached out to Brant. I said, Brant, can you help? Brant didn't just say yes. He brought 8 Hollywood film directors with him. They spent almost 2 weeks with Syrian youth, teaching them how to actually make film so the rest of the world can know about the harrowing journey that they had fleeing their homes. Wait, there's more. Brant went on to make a narrative feature film that Angelina Jolie saw and was so taken with, is now taken around the world to world leaders so that they can continue to understand the enormity of what we know, and many of those of you who are in this room know firsthand that there is still a crisis and it's not going away anytime soon. So the point of the story is we all should be helping one another, and we should get rid of our assumptions, right? And I think this ties to one of the important messages of this entire conference, is that we need to look and see everyone as humans, and that we all bring value everywhere. So I want to make sure people who are attending know that they can ask questions and put them in the Q&A. That would be the best place. And we're happy to do our best to answer them. I'm going to ask our panelists another question or two, and then I would love to open it up to our wonderful audience. And I know people have questions or maybe comments. So question for you all. You're all leaders in your fields now and have really led the way in starting new initiatives and companies. Do you have a core philosophy about connecting with others who may be earlier in their journey?
I think for me, it's been modeling kind of, and being very clear about, I tend to ask questions. And also when I want something, I let people in the world know that I need this, I'm looking for this. And so I think if you want to model for other people and tell them exactly what you're doing, you can really help them, right? In terms of their own journey, if they're earlier to this journey. And really, like the principles like you've laid out in your book around curiosity, that's a very simple but effective way to learn about others and to connect. So, something that I find that women in particular tend to be shy about is sharing what we want. And so I've said, how can people help you unless you say, this is exactly what I'm looking for? And once you put it out there in the world, you'd be surprised. People will remember, oh yeah, I was talking to Tina the other day and she was saying that she's looking for somebody to help her with this. And it's how we build our network, how we build our tribe, and how we help each other, right? It's just putting it out there. So it's not just asking people, how can I help you? It's saying, hey, right now, this is something that I'm really excited about, and I'm looking for help in these ways, and just spreading the word. If you know of anyone like this, please tell me, and just getting it out there.
I love that. I love that. Hitha,
Something I've had to learn by trial by fire is being very intentional about the ask. So I think when you're young and starting off in your career, this idea of I need a mentor can kind of consume you without thinking about, well, what is it that I'm looking at this mentoring relationship and what can I offer that mentor? And so I kind of, with younger people who are starting out, I kind of shared the framework that I have figured out for myself is, am I looking for a mentor? And so is it a very specific thing I want to learn about and get their experience from? Do I need a coach to help me really level up like part of my career and work on specific skills? Do I need an advisor to just sort of offer high level guidance? Or do I need a sponsor within an organization who sees my potential and understands my goals and is going to help me get there while I can support the sponsor in any way? And so in sharing that framework with people who are just getting started in their career has been something I've tried a lot to do often. And when people ask me to be a mentor, I will say, here's what I would like to ask you is, do you have a specific question? Are you looking for how I handled a specific situation? And if you want to send me some questions, I will send you a voice memo in response. I don't necessarily have time for a call or to write it out in an email, but I'm happy to share with you how I can. And please keep me posted on how it goes for you. So we aren't taught these sort of soft communication skills, and many of us have had to figure it out as we go along. So the more of these sort of the framework and the tactical tips I can give to people, I think that's sort of my give on a very specific way for people who are starting out, who are going to be rock stars in their own right.
In my next life, I want to be just a quarter as organized as you are. It's so bad.
You're doing okay, Susan.
Right.
You're doing great, Susan.
Yeah.
You don't want to see what's on the floor of my office. It is not organized.
I know for me, I approach this question with the same way I approach it. What do I wish I had? What models do I wish I had? And coming up in my career, I wish I had ways for people. I wish more people modeled that you don't accomplish anything big alone. And so I reach back by showing younger people who I am mentoring or are in my ecosystem how I'm cultivating community and connection and expanding the tribe and like basically showing how I work and modeling that you don't get anywhere alone, and also teaching them how to ask for help, how to ask for a letter of recommendation, how to time it out when you're ask for busy people who want to be of service. You need to make it facilitate as much ease as possible to make it possible for them to fit that into their life. And I also know that we have this like sense of toxic individualism in this country, and it's really, really difficult to find models of success that are not this, fake John Wayne, bootstrap kind of and fake narrative. So one of the ways I think that we can help cultivate an upcoming generation of people who are more interdependent is showing our ways of interdependence.
I love that. I love that. All right, let's take a few questions from our amazing audience. Kristen Bloom asks, during a pandemic when it's hard to connect with others outside your own circle, how do you recommend we expand our circle and make authentic connections with people? Well, I
love this question.
So that's one good thing. There's some tips.
But
I'm going to turn to the crowd.
I love this question because I feel like my world expanded in the pandemic because I'm good at this. And that is being very intentional, going to people and saying, these are the kind of questions I'm working through, the problems that I'm having. Who do you think I should talk to? And like just asking for help, and then making space in your life to make new connections with people. I find that Zoom has made things way more accessible. I'm not having to get on planes and shake hands and kiss babies. Don't get me wrong. I love your babies. Let me send them to me. But super time consuming, but it fits into our lifestyle more, going on phone walks and what have you. But the thing is, that question, which oh, hold on a second, let me that Kristen asked, is letting other people know that you want those connections and then making space in your life to have them.
I love that.
I'm going to add to that real quick, which is I think in Zoom, if you like what you've done, Kristen, is you've kind of announced yourself by asking a question. So now we know of you, and that makes it much easier to connect with people. Is like if you're just a quiet participant, then it's harder to connect on Zoom, kind of like what Sabrina's talking about. But if you reveal yourself and talk about like why I'm here and share some of that, you're starting on the right step by kind of asking a question, raising your hand. So that's how I think we can do it in this virtual world where we reveal ourselves in these bigger meetings and people have a sense of who we are. And we invite people to contact us afterward if we're, if they're working on one, A, B, or C, and that's a good way to do it.
And also the chat function is a remarkable tool because when we used to be in, the proverbial meeting after meeting, you couldn't be having side conversations. You would probably get in a little bit of trouble. So ladies, we only have like 3 minutes. So I want to just quickly ask you something that I think is really valuable to the audience. And that is, what is one action that you think the attendees today could walk away with today to make, or to help them make a connection, and one step they could take to deepen a connection? So I realize this is just a quick thought.
So I have really benefited from sliding into people's DMs on Instagram and having my DMs be slid into. And so just like Zoom, don't underestimate the power of social media. If there's someone whose content you really enjoy and value, DM them and tell them why and be very specific about it, because that can lead to a relationship. That has led to me investing in companies and making friends and whatnot that I otherwise would have never probably met some of these incredible women in my life. So slide into someone's DMs that you admire as something you could do to start a connection. And to deepen a connection, I honestly think you should just do like phone roulette and like swipe up and then stop in your contacts and see if someone on that page is someone you really miss and want to reach out to and reconnect with, and just say, been thinking about you. How are you doing? I hope you're hanging in there and surviving these very crazy times. And it can be as simple as that. And something I've done is not letting that moment of thinking of a friend pass me by before actually texting them and saying that right away and taking action on it, because otherwise I would never probably reach out to anyone.
I want to build on that one. I saw something recently where I have a book that I love recently. It came out last year called Saigon, Sighgone. And it's about the Vietnamese kind of refugee American experience. This person read the author's book, loved it so much that she didn't just DM him. She like put it on Instagram. She @ him and she said, @ Fook Skywalker. I didn't even know I needed this book until I read it. And then he reposted it to all of his followers. So now it's not just like deep, now she doesn't just have a one-on-one connection with him. She has a connection with all of his followers who love his book too. And so it's not just the DM, which is awesome. It's also like, take a picture of yourself with your favorite author's book. Susan, I'll be doing that very briefly. And @ them so that they can see that you're advocating for them and you're a fan and you're letting the world know too.
Shine a light on people. So my quick tip would be always lead with how you can be helpful. And you can do a little bit of research. There's no excuse not to be able to. We have something called the Google and a million other ways to look up somebody before you reach out to them. But I'm being told we've got to move on. So here's the good news. First of all, thank you for everybody who joined. And it's been a pleasure to get to spend 45 minutes with these 3 incredibly brilliant and successful women. But the good news is you can return, the audience can return to the virtual lobby, and there's a link in the Zoom chat, and you can spend the next 35 minutes having a lunch break with us. I hope somebody's going to bring me lunch because I don't have any lunch. And remember, you can continue the conversations from today and connect with one another through live tweeting and the LinkedIn Hello Neighbor group that was created, the LinkedIn Hello Neighbor Network. So stay on and join us for the next 35 minutes and we can continue this wonderful conversation and hopefully have some fun. and joy. So thank you.
Thank you.